Hi, how are you doing? I'm Steve Sharp, and I am the president-elect of the Pennsylvania School Counseling Association. And I'm also just taking the opportunity to reach out with some colleagues across the state so we can have a conversation while we're on this coronavirus hold to really see if we can share some insights, have a dialogue as far as what's going out in the field as we're working from our homes to support ourselves, our schools, and our students. So taking it around, why don't we start with our elementary school people first?
Hi, I'm Barb McCucci. I work in Upper Merion Area School District, and I'm in a K-4 building.
Hello, my name is Christina Green, and I'm in School District Philadelphia, and I am in a K-8 building, so I'll be speaking partially elementary and partially middle from an urban perspective.
Hi, I'm Janelle Reese. I'm an elementary school counselor at Bellefonte Elementary in the central part of the state, and my building is K-5. So one of the things that we're focusing on is coordinating with my principal to send out resources about how to talk to students about COVID-19, some SEL that they could be doing at home, also with the knowledge that this is a unique situation for each family and not setting certain expectations that they need to be doing this, but offering the help that we can. We also just sent out a short video with clips of different staff members practicing some calming strategies that we do at school as well, and making it a little lighthearted for them as well, and letting them know we're here for them in this unique time.
That's awesome.
I think one of the things to keep in mind is that, right now families are under a lot of stress. There are some families that have lost jobs due to what's going on right now. A lot of families are at home, and families are now being charged with educating their kids. So one of the things that we've been really aware of is not overwhelming the families, but reaching out and just letting them know that we're here, reassuring them that it's okay to have lots of different feelings. A lot of us, this is very unprecedented. We have fire drills, we have intruder drills. Nobody's ever prepared for something of this magnitude. So we have been talking as a counseling team. We just did a letter just kind of acknowledging those kinds of things to families and letting them know we're available if they need us. I know teachers are starting to send homework, and families are feeling like they've never done this before. I think they're going to have a real appreciation of what educators do. So I think just trying to be a support right now is really important.
So, again, this is Christina Green, and I'm a school counselor in the School District of Philadelphia. We received an email explaining that anything that is being done on platforms like Google and other electronic platforms, we need to take in consideration that a lot of our children do not have access. Mm-hmm. So we have been asked to stop anything, at least academically, that would result in a grade. When we have tried to get clarification, that is actually pending right now. We are an extremely large school district, and we are spread very, very thin. We are still trying to work out the meals and the packets that are being made for the children, and for families to get access to those. I know I personally have been contacted by a few of our English second language families about where they can go for things like meals and packets. So that has been more of the priority, and not so much the school counseling program right now. As far as the curriculum, it's just providing support when someone reaches out to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Are you just using your existing knowledge as far as knowing the resources and supports around from the existing community, or has there been more resource lists and resource maps being developed just in light of the hold and the crisis?
So our school district in Philadelphia does have a website that is extremely helpful in parents accessing locations where they can receive things like meals and also the academic packets. Unfortunately, again, because of resources, I'm hearing that they don't have packets for every grade available. So there are some questions from parents, what should we do? Or the parents are not understanding the packets or they cannot read them because of language proficiency issues. So the information is on our main website. I believe that we do have some families that are accessing that platform. However, I think some are just trying to reach out to people in the schools. I understand that our principals are actually in the schools, so they're there. Now, if they're answering the phones or if they're answering the doors, I'm not sure about that.
Is anyone else doing anything with basic resource coordination like meals or anything like that?
We have a community cupboard in our area, and so information has been going out mostly through our superintendent. He sent out information. Our social workers reached out to us to let us know that the hours have changed and about availability and volunteer opportunities. So we have shared that with our principals because they have the capacity to send out large group emails to all of our families. Me as a counselor, I do not have that access. So I shared that with my principal and they'll be sending out those resources. But I think equity and access is really an important thing for us to consider. I know the day that we left school, all of our teachers were checking with our students of who has internet at home. And I'm not sure if people are aware, but Comcast has set up 2 months free internet access through their Internet Essentials program. So families can access the internet, because that's a big thing, you know, that inequity of some people having that resource and others don't. So you can't have that expectation.
Barb, you've been at this longer than all of us at this point, haven't you?
Why do you have to say that? but you know what? We're all in this together, because I have never experienced something like this in my career.
Oh, I meant that you've been on the hold longer than all of us. You're only 29, right?
Uh-huh.
But moving on. Now, we were talking a little bit about some of the resources your district was doing too, right?
We have been. So my district, there are parts of it that the students don't have internet access, not because of affordability, but is just not there yet for parts of there. And for our food distribution, it comes from our local Y that is working with neighboring districts as well. And they've been sending out lists to sign up to volunteer because of the unknowing of how long this is going to last, and also sending out resources for what are we going to do past 2 weeks if this was to go on. So there is a lot of coordination with our school social worker as well with our district admin team, really partnering with our local Y.
Yeah. Speaking for myself, I'm the counseling coordinator for our middle school. I'm sorry, for our district, and I'm a middle school counselor, as is Mike. We've been trying, I have a call out with our United Way to synchronize some of our services that were provided in addition to that. We have started our meal preparation, coordination, and started distribution earlier this week. Because we're a one-to-one Apple school, we actually had an influx of hotspots that we've been sitting on and been trying to distribute those to some families as well. And that's just a lucky resource that I feel like we've been able to provide. But for us, our biggest target at this point, the needs that we're hearing from our principals is provide more and more mental health resources for students and families. But Mike, what are you guys doing?
This is Michael Perrott, past president of PSCA, but South Fayette Middle School on the western part of the state, the greater Pittsburgh area. Our school district, we're fortunate enough at this point in time to be a one-to-one district where each student, K-2 has their own iPad, 2-12 has their own laptop. So we've been kind of ready to push out digital instruction. We're not doing anything until the 30th. We're going to adhere to the governor's 10 days, but we've tried to, we face some of the same problems. We have a big disparity in our district between the haves and the have-nots. We do have a significant free and reduced lunch population. We also have people, living in, multi-million-dollar homes. So the disparity is large in our district, and bridging that gap has been something that has been a challenge for us. So despite the fact that we do have one-on-one, we have a lot of kids that have a laptop but may not have internet at their house. So some of the things that Barb said with the Comcast plan, has been mailed out to all of our families. What we've tried to do is hold off on the distance or the digital learning until the 30th so that we can have time to have literally snail mail, if you will, reach people's houses and have them have a chance to get back to us. To coordinate that, I'm going to blend two things into one here. Our district has been providing meals for the lower income families in our district. And if you do not have internet at your house, the teachers have been asked to provide resources that we have a centralized copy center. So we will make hard physical copies of information that is available online. And that's coordinated through counselors and principals. So if you come up to pick up food or resources, we have a campus. So every one of our school buildings is on the same campus, our elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school. We've been distributing food from the high school, and we also, if the families have let us know, we will also distribute physical packets of information to take home. That'll be combined in a box with the food that you pick up to get that to the families that, like I said, we have families that have we have personal laptops, but not have internet to access that information. So the families can pick up the food and the school information at the same time when they come up to pick up their resources, that it's all bundled together. Our plan initially is to do that. They can pick up the food every day. The information for education will be on Mondays only. So on Mondays, their box, if you will be significantly heavier because it'll include the food and the education information. And we've been able to also, our transportation director has been kind enough to put together for some families who don't have transportation, can drop off those things that are at local libraries or not digital hotspots, but other meeting places so that families within walking distance can go there and pick up that food and other resources. So that's been kind of the way that we've tried to coordinate that. The counselors have been notifying the principals of who those families are. If we haven't heard back from a family, we've indicated a list of people who haven't heard back from, and our principals have reached out over the phone to call those families to see what they are in need of. So that's a work in progress, but we've had a fair amount of success. We've heard back from about 90% of the families that we are concerned about at this point in time, and those efforts are ongoing.
Just one thing that I heard you say that at least struck with me. One thing I appreciate that our district did is we're making our meals and material resources. We're not going by our free and reduced lunch line or list anymore. We're just making it available because, as I think Christina or Barb was saying before, we don't know which adults have been affected right now, which adults were in good health and had a job back in January. At this point, like we just don't know. That's one initiative that our administration brought out early on that I appreciate that they had done. But it sounds like great work that's going on in South Fayette. What's happening, at least as far as at the high school level at this point?
So I would say at Jen Kirk, Upper St. Clair High School, I work with 8.5 to 12, I guess, because we pick up 8th graders in February. I'm also the curriculum leader for the high school group. So we started heavily initially, of course, like everyone else, being very focused on how can we make sure kids do work, and then shifted from there. We have a very active school board in our district. I'm very engaged. And so there's actually a lot of collaboration going on there. Our school board members are multi-connected, I guess you could say. And so with regard to resources for our families, because we do, like South Fayette, actually have quite the continuum of families. We do have people in multi-million-dollar homes. And then we also have many families that are very deep on the free and reduced lunch list. And so we're working with our community foundation to ensure that there are services and supports in place with regard to food, internet, heat, that people can maintain their homes. Additionally, with regard to that is, to your point, we don't know who is out of work right now, whose situation might change. And we do have a very proud community, prideful even. And so it becomes complicated because folks are not great about asking for help in our area often. And so we're trying to normalize that, I guess you would say, in this time, because we're all needing a lot of support in different ways. Let's see here. We've really worked hard to maintain some kind of normalcy. We are sticking to that 2-week window as well. No formal instruction, I guess. At the high school level, we are one-to-one. Our kids all have Chromebooks, but again, trying to figure out who has internet access, who does not, and then really thinking through the fact that, you know, we also have staff that has needs that are on the social emotional realm, and this is a big ask because we really weren't positioned to completely go online like everyone else for the most part. And so this ask is big, and we're not sure what's going on in their homes and what's happening with their children and how this is impacting our staff and faculty. So working diligently through providing those supports as well to our faculty and staff. And so this past week, what we did was release a large resource list to families saying, hey, well, everybody's at home. Here are some free things if you want. I mean, Khan Academy is on there, other free resources that we all have. I'll dump that into the doc. I didn't do that yet. You know, just to have as access so that when you're trying to get your kids, our high school kids off Xbox, and we're not letting them go to the basketball courts anymore, they have something to do that isn't, you know, playing Grand Theft Auto or whatever, because that's high school life. And consistency with services, same talking through faith and how we can support these kids. We have a pretty extensive high number life skills population. How are we going to support these families and ensure services for those kids has been discussed at great length as well. We've pressed out with support of our Smart Desk. We have a group of students who are just really good at tech, way better than the rest of us, that it's a class they take, and they're sort of our staff in the building have really been supportive in helping out. And our principal's pressed out videos. It's pretty silly. It's very Mr. Rogers. It's cute. But he's, you know, hello, friends. Hope you're all having, you know, things are going well. But just talking through, reminding the kids that we're going to work through this and be okay. Kind of non-traditional for high school, I would say, but appreciated. I have a high schooler in my house that goes to my school. He laughed a little, but was thankful to see that as well. Within the department, you know, we are in the crux of course selection and course verifications, and trying to build our master's schedule is coming up. So those timelines have gotten very delayed. So there's definitely stress in my department about that, and how are we going to manage that, both with my people and with my secretary. So working through that. Have to pause that because we're also now formally talking about grad requirements, seniors, what's happening with that. We're getting bombarded with emails regarding what the universities are doing, and what trade schools are doing, and what anyone's doing. Our juniors are now on big hiccup schedules because their services are changing into next year. You know, we are seeing a change, and feel free, Lisa, to hop in there, but a change in what colleges and universities are doing for next year. I've seen an influx of schools going test optional now because the SAT and ACT have canceled their standardized testing. Entire schedule has changed as well with game plan. And we're not there to support them through that. So we're looking to push out, here's an updated schedule of timeline of events once we know what's going on. Today, the College Board is releasing a new game going to look like for how we're going to manage that. Ultimately, to ensure our kids get that work done, and really looking at post-high school planning and transition. Sorry, that was a lot of talking.
It was all really a
That's
pleasure.
where we are.
Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you're doing in your district right now?
Lisa Fulton. I work at Elko High School, so Lebanon, Pennsylvania, sort of southeast Pennsylvania. We have the same thing. We haven't done any instruction for these 2 weeks. In fact, we were told as teachers not to contact any parents during this week because they really want all information coming out from one central source, which is the superintendent. So she's been sending a lot of updates to the parents as well as staff. So we do have meals. Our meal pickup, they decided instead of doing every day to do once a week. So every Monday, like last Monday and the next Monday, families can come and pick up, and calls went out besides the Global Connects. So that went out, calls went out to all those families to make sure that they were aware that they could come and pick up, those meals on those days. I know our admin team is really working. We're actually doing next week, all staff are doing 3 virtual professional development days. We are getting a detailed agenda later today or Monday, so I'm not quite sure what that's all going to look like, but that's really to prepare the teachers to start rolling out instruction after that March 30th. So, we're going to have those 3 days of instruction to sort of like work with our teams, work with our buildings. So in prep for that, like I'm trying to pull together a lot of counseling resources that I've seen. So I'm hoping part of that, or if not, I'm going to make sure part of that is, the counseling department talking together to sort of see what we're doing K through 12 as counselors, so we can sort of all be consistent across the levels. Our middle school and high school are one-to-one, so they all have iPads, but I know not all of them take them home, so that's sort of spotty. Did everybody have them? We have iPads for the intermediate school, but they don't go home at all. So that's discussion, like what are we going to do with that? And of course, our younger students don't have any one-to-one access. And we also have a lot of students that don't have Wi-Fi at home. And we actually have where we're at, we're sort of remote in some areas. So there's actually some staff that struggle with having Wi-Fi too, just, being able to keep it up. So I know, like Steve had talked about, Apple does have some hotspots. The district has that. So I know that was the discussion, like if we have to give those out, how's that process look like? I know I'm the AP coordinator. I know Jen talked about AP, yeah. So that's a big thing on my mind right now. Like I just finalized all of our money and our orders and put that in. So I know that that's a big concern, how that's going to look, what do we need to do, how that testing. So I've been waiting to see, what the College Board comes out for that as far as how we're moving forward with the AP testing. Because I know, luckily, we just sort of finished up our scheduling. I scheduled all the 8th and 9th graders, so that is all done. I think they had maybe 20 upperclassmen to do. So we're pretty set with that moving forward. Luckily, we were on a timeline. We wanted to be done by March 20th. So we were pretty good about that. So at least that's one less worry that we have, moving forward as far as scheduling.
Awesome. One part that I heard as far as just the communication and connecting with families, it seems like we're doing that in different ways. One of my friends out in New Jersey, her school district is doing this. I just wanted to share it real quick. It's on the Facebook. And so they're actually through Instagram. I'm not sure if they're using like TikTok or Snapchat, but they're doing different just check-in challenges where they're just having opportunities to reach out to their kids, whether it be something silly or just get some feedback as far as different activities, and using that to still build and maintain some of that connectedness. And I really like that. And that is Blue Tide School Counseling Department. So shout out. I might try and connect with her a little bit later on.
Those are things that I'd like to do. Next week, we've been told we are allowed to communicate with parents. So I'm hoping with our professional development days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as a counseling department, we can start doing some things like that.
One of the things that I'm finding really reassuring during this chat is I thought like our district was behind the 8 ball. I was like, we haven't really done anything yet. I don't know that I'm really prepared to even speak to this, but I'm feeling like all of us are under the same directive, because the same thing, our district was told, like we were told not to reach out. And we just got an email a day or so ago saying, look at your families, look at your class lists. Are there families that you feel like you need to check in with? So I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I've been like remiss, but I guess I'm really in the same time frame as everybody else. We're kind of unfolding this slowly. And I think people are just wrapping their brains around what's actually happening. And, we're in this for the long haul. So I think we need to kind of like pace ourselves.
Yeah.
I think many people were trying to figure out how long was this going to go on. Is it temporary? How real is it? I think we're unfortunately seeing the realism that we're going to have to confront with this. And so as it goes from 2 weeks to what is likely to be 4, 6, I know there's discussion for the year. I think our sights have shifted in terms of how do we meet the needs of those families over a longer haul, as opposed to a briefer period.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to have this discussion, because I think that's what makes not just us on the call, but us as a profession unique. Like, I'm not saying, just speaking to Barb, like that any of us have had training for this, but we've had training for this. We know how to interact with families across a lifespan regardless of disruption, to build the best results. And I feel like this is a unique opportunity for us as school counselors to demonstrate the leadership that we've been trained to do. This is why I'm really appreciative that everyone's on this call. But I think there still are some questions out there. I know that we had a list of questions that were sent out to us. Let me just pull those up real quick. Are there any other thoughts as I'm doing that?
One of the things I want to say that I for other counselors, for everybody, I think the importance of collaborating with your fellow counselors and counselors in your nearby areas to see what they're doing. You know, check out the counselor Facebook pages have had some amazing resources available. I think, you know, Ask a Scene, going to PSCA, just like really looking up resources and sharing them with each other, I think is a way that we can really support each other and the profession and our families together. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm trying to do, is just sort of pull those resources together. So when we have our meetings next week, I'm prepared to say, you know, here are a bunch of resources, not just for counselors, but to share that with the teachers too.
Do you guys have any highlighted resources? Most of our questions were asking about what were the resources or activities that you were looking to do or looking towards at this point. I know that there are a lot of great social emotional curricula out there that can be delivered online, like Overcoming Obstacles. Sanford Harmony is a self-guided one that's very popular in schools. In addition to that, just off of those groups, I've become aware of two more. Classroom Champions is one that stuck out to me so far. But are there any other like SEL pieces that anyone else is looking at, or any other resources, digital or otherwise?
I'm trying to now that you said that, we have one that we use, and I have to Everfi.
Oh, yeah.
That's all online. Like some of our teachers use that with students, and that's basically all online. So you can sign up for that if you haven't used that before.
And they have those two entrepreneurship modules, the Fulfill CEW for high school.
Hey, Christina, just talking to you for a second. Hey, you're muted, so I'm gonna unmute you.
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm hearing what colleagues across the state are doing, and I think it's absolutely amazing. And I just feel like we're in slightly a different place in Philadelphia when we're saying, you know, kids having access to food. I am sure that folks have probably heard throughout the years what the status of our buildings, education, our struggles are like in Philadelphia. There truly is an equity and access issue. And we're not even talking about access to the internet, and not even talking about access to devices. It's just, do we even have enough to support the students in Philadelphia? And we are truly in a crisis situation. So kind of taking a step back and talking about my colleagues in school counseling and supporting students. And if anyone reaches out to me and asks, one of the things that I do talk to them about is, first of all, being careful. We've received a directive from the school district, from our principals, about online academics for our students. And some people are very anxious about that. I acknowledge that the frustration is coming from a place of anxiety because our students are so needy, and we want to make sure that they are receiving something. So just being aware of ethics, that we have a lot of students that do not have access, and that if you provide support to some, you're not providing support to all. So therefore it's an equity issue. To kind of take a step back and look at existing gaps, and if you are a little gung-ho to support students that have the access, that you're creating more of a gap? And how are you planning to fill that gap once we are back to school? Because it is going to happen one day. We are going to be back. And also maybe looking into professional development, making yourself a little bit more knowledgeable. We are kind of taking on our own perspective about what this might look like based on our own worldview. However, we might need to educate ourselves on what the reality is for some of our families in regard to access and equity. So doing some professional development to learn about that, offering different resources. We have counselors who are not connected to professional organizations, and that is something that I am trying to work on advocating. I am hearing from some of my colleagues who do want to share that they do not always see the benefit in being connected to professional organizations, because professional organizations do not speak to what we experience as school counselors in an urban setting. School counselors that are working with such large numbers of students, and school counselors who have extremely high caseloads. Like we have a school counselor that has close to 1,400 students on her caseload in the district. How do you access, how do you service 1,400 students equally? You know, I have over 600 on my caseload, and how do I service them equally with the different barriers and challenges that exist for me as an educator, and also for my students and families as well. So I'm trying to share information to my colleagues on the professional development, on ethics, on, you know, this is very uncomfortable for a lot of us, but realize that us taking a step back and waiting is actually possibly more ethical than providing for some. And we're just waiting for direction, and in the frustration that's being verbalized, to realize, I actually pulled up the number and I want to share. We are a school district that services a little under 129,000 students. So as much as Barb mentioned, kind of having this realization, oh, you know what, our district isn't so much behind in comparison to those of us that are on this call right now, but also realizing there's an additional challenge because we are servicing so many. We're one of the largest school districts in all of the United States. So it is going to take a little longer to roll out information, to roll out plans and services and things like that. And we just have to be patient and have faith that these professionals are in the positions of power and leadership for a reason. And we just need to lean on that right now.
I mean, the reality is, like, SDOP is about 25 times larger than my school district.
Right.
And there are going to be a range of needs when we talk about anything as far as that large. And I know that the strain I feel supporting my students, let alone having caseloads or students of up to 1,400, these are real things. And I think in these, do we want to support all of our students? The answer to that is yes, but we also need to just figure out how we can best service our students. You're absolutely hitting the nail on the head. There is not now, there has been in the state of Pennsylvania and across the nation an ongoing equity issue. And that is going to be something further exacerbated throughout this crisis, and probably following it too. And this is one thing, again, where I think we as school counselors are uniquely positioned, because we had that lens to be aware of that. We had those language tools, and we had the structure in our training to start to address those and identify those, and using data to guide it. I think one thing that we're going to need to really be mindful of is, like, how are we doing that outreach, and what does that data look like? As I forget, like, I know Mike was saying, like, those lists as far as identifying those families and reaching out. It is fortunate that we can start to do those individual identification, but clearly when we talk about large scale data sets like that, the way that we collect information and communicate that out to take action, that's going to look a lot different. In addition to that, what we're talking about, which is real, which we're hearing right now, is like there's always been need for care for our students. And then in addition to that, a range as far as continuing mental health services as well. And that field is rapidly changing, not a period this week. We just saw a suspension of HIPAA enforcement through OCR as recently as yesterday afternoon, allowing for the higher presence of things like telemedicine and teletherapy as well, which will allow a little bit more agility when it comes to any counselors, including us, delivering services over mediums like this, like Zoom. But everything isn't just about Zoom. Like, our students need to be fed and stuff like that. That is one reason, like, when, at least in my district, our first contact that we're looking to make is actually with the United Way, to start to better understand and then streamline community partnerships. This is where practices that school counselors can do, like resource mapping, particularly now where we might have some time to reassess that. And as the system is so rapidly changing, becomes a very valuable skill and tool so that we can plug our services, our families, into the correct services as quickly as possible as we become aware. And those are some other tools that might be beneficial. But yeah, I mean, this is what crisis looks like, and crisis looks different across districts where our school systems are so clearly defined differently by zip codes sometimes. But yeah, there's a lot to go on. As you were talking before, the issue as far as adequate services, that is a basic FAPE issue that is out there. But still, we also want to not miss out on opportunities to educate our students. I do like what I'm hearing from what Mike was saying before as far as providing both paper and in addition to electronic pieces. But I feel like there's more things that we could be doing as well to engage families in that way. And I'll just be honest, I don't know what that is yet. But I'm hoping, like, through conversations like this, through connecting, hopefully we can all start figuring out those things together. I don't want to, like, the pause to reassess, I think, is very practical. I don't want us to be stymied, though, when I feel like hopefully ultimately we might be able to create something better in the end. What are some other things? We were talking a little bit as far as online resources. I think we started to talk about distance learning and distance education. Um, you know, there's one, we talked a little bit, one of the questions was how to screen for red flags for the students that are out there. I heard some active outreach for families that you're already concerned about. Are there any other, and we talked some as far as the check-in process a little bit when we were talking about the high school piece. Are there any other pieces that we'd like to share? Either Lisa, would you like to share anything from the national perspective as a board member from ASCA, just some things you're observing, or some of the resources that ASCA is providing, or Dr. Bookhammer, just in your experience leading this association, any thoughts or feedback you would have?
I mean, I know that ASCA does every day. There's new tweets. I mean, that's the staff part, not really my role as a board member, but I know, like, I follow it and try to keep up with what they're posting. So I know there's lots of resources. They've been tweeting and posting things, out there, as far as, resources for students, families. I think they just recently posted, like, the ethical guidelines for virtual and distance. So to look at that, like when you're looking at your ethical guidelines on how to do that if you're doing some type of virtual counseling, they posted that maybe last week. I think Eric Sparks might have tweeted that out.
Yeah, they did post it. We shared it earlier this week from PSCA standpoint. And for everyone, we'll re-highlight it. There is on Monday at 11 a.m. a pop-up webinar as far as the ethical implications for virtual and distance counseling with Carolyn Stone and Wendy Rock.
Well, and also I know if you've noticed, like, they're asking you, they're on a savings right now. So just if you need more professional development to help your job and what you're doing, definitely now's the time to sort of do some of those professional development opportunities, like the webinars, they're still going on, the Ask a You trainings, things to follow up and make sure you're keeping current on the Ask a Scene. I know Barb talked about that. I know people are posting different resources there to be able to use and have those conversations. Off topic, I know I have a question. I didn't know if anyone else has reached out, or if anyone has school-based counseling, what those outpatient providers are doing. I don't know if anyone has heard that in their district. I'm curious because I would like to take that back.
Yeah, I reached out to our clinical coordinators for both of our school-based providers. Over the course of the past week, they have gotten authorization to provide teletherapy, and we're reaching out to families to engage and rescheduling either straight outpatient appointments or teletherapy appointments. And they were starting that process this week.
Okay, because I wanted to take that back to see, what our provider is doing, because we have probably a good 30 students that are getting school-based services at the high school.
Why don't you text me later on, because we might have the same providers.
Okay.
Speaking from myself, again, this is Western Pennsylvania, but we do have school-based mental health. They did get approval. Our primary provider is through one institution, and they are beginning telehealth starting next Monday. So they're going to try to still remain in contact with families via that route. They do have the option. Their offices are still open as of this moment, pending on what other mandates come down from the governor. But they have also made the option to their families that they can go to their, they have 3 satellite offices. They can go there. And then they also are making the telehealth option available to those families as well. Again, we get back into the same thing about internet and accessibility and so forth, but they're doing, I think, all that they can to try to make those resources still available for some of our most needy students and families.
We don't have school-based mental health. The school counselors provide that still in our district. So that's an ongoing conversation. I will echo, though, what Mike has said about Western PA. We have a high percentage of kids going out of school services, and there's been a lot of feedback from those folks on how they're handling that, and they will still see kids in office with many, many guidelines and how that has to look. So the higher profile, higher need kids will still be going for their services in person, it seems, if they can get there. But there are strict guidelines around, what they have to do before they come, I guess, basically. I mean, there was like a very long bullet list of hand washing and sanitation and that kind of thing.
I do just want to jump in just to introduce into the conversation for those of us on the call or who are listening who aren't familiar. There are a range of emerging online counseling resources. Some of the major ones include not as an endorsement, but as information, BetterHelp, Talkspace, and this one's originally named, this one's called Teen Counseling, where they focus on online counseling of teens. There's also one which is more, which does not have trained counselors, but they do have trained listeners. It's called 7 Cups of Tea, and that's also a very popular one. For psychiatric services, the 2 big ones would be Doctors on Demand, which does offer free assessments, and MD Live, which is the largest one for psychiatry. Yeah, Dr. Bookhammer, do you have any thoughts or any contributions you'd like to add?
I do want to say I got an email yesterday from Hatching Results that Trish Hatch is offering some of her courses for no cost at all. I think if you sign up for before March 30th. I didn't see it on the website, but I did see it in the email. So that's another professional opportunity for school counselors right now.
Great. Yeah, I can't stress enough, just speaking to both what Lisa, Dr. Bookhammer, and Dr. Greenlee were saying. We want to serve our students, but in this time of pause, if we have time to really take care of ourselves, specifically through things like professional development, we don't know for certain what's coming next, but I think we can say strongly right now, there is going to be a growing need for equity work. I think there's going to be a higher need for a clinical competency to plug our students into the right services on what could possibly be a subsequent mental health crisis for our kids. These are things that I think that we'd be cognizant and take some of this time during the pause to build our own pieces while we're taking care of ourselves as well. Before we go, I would like to whip around the group in the same way that we just started. What are you guys doing to take care of yourselves right now?
I'm sorry, can I just hop in real quick?
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. School counseling interns.
Oh, right.
This is a high five coming at you right now. Boom. Yeah,
Boom.
so school counseling interns. School counseling interns, we were talking a lot about this off call while we're in our virtual green rooms. there's a need for there right now. I think we have we want to support our future colleagues as they're getting ready, but there are frankly plenty of intern and practicum students out there that are short of hours. At least how I'm understanding right now, a few things specifically that I can talk about is, first, some of it will come down to a program decision, and some of it will not. For right now, the Department of Education has asked for the legislator to draft legislation to allow the secretary to have greater leeway and creating flexibility for field experienced students, which I believe would include school counseling, practicum, and intern students in regards to their hours. Separate to that, KCREP did issue a statement earlier this week where they were going to provide some flexibility, which included more telehealth opportunities to count that as direct services. In addition to that, they were going to allow students who had yet to complete their hours to still walk with their original cohort during graduation. But they were also clear that hours would not change as far as the direct to indirect distribution or the amount of hours that a internship or practicum student would need. Oh, a practicum student could also simultaneously do practicum and internship at the same time if they had satisfied all the requirements to meet for practicum as well. And those were the biggest KCREP. I do want to say strongly, this has been an ongoing conversation that we've been having here at PSCA. And we look to make an announcement probably early next week as far as at least that initiative that we're going to roll out to hopefully help to supplement some of those hours for our counselors, regardless of what program that we're at. And shout out to Dr. Bookhammer and Ms. Kirk for their help in that project. But please stay tuned because this is a real issue too that we want to make sure that we're addressing. Any last things that we want to bring up or talk about before we just whip it right back around?
Steve, I'm going to, just popped into my email is something from Karen Dickinson, who is a counselor educator at Westchester.
Yeah, hey Karen.
Well, she's not on, just popped into my email. Anyway, she's also the president of PACES, Pennsylvania Association of Counselor Educators and Supervisors. And she's put together some strategies to help to suggest how grad students may earn some hours. And it's a pretty, I'm looking at it right now, and it's a pretty lengthy list. So
if you share that over with me when we post this, I'll add it to the list.
Okay. Well, okay. I don't know if she wants, well, I guess, I think it's okay. All right. I was going to say, since it's sent to the PACES people, does she want it out there to everybody? But I can do that. CE Field Brain, it's a brainstorm. So, okay. I'll figure out how to get this to you.
Anything else for the good?
It's not an attachment.
Cool.
Oh, wait, no, there's the link.
So starting from the bottom to the top, yeah, what are you guys doing for self-care these days? Barb, you let us off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think first off, trying to keep a routine. So I'm not letting myself sleep till, like 12, getting up, staying active, walking, trying to exercise and organize. I feel like cleaning stuff out is giving me a purpose. So every day I'm picking a little area in my house of stuff that I never would get to get to. And then also connecting with my colleagues and trying to keep a pulse on things. So that way I find myself, thinking and trying to formulate a plan for moving forward.
Janelle?
Well, I've been training for a big event in June that I'm hoping isn't canceled. So I'm continuing to work out and keep that going, even though it's not as fun when you're not doing it with other people. And I've been Instagramming my dog all the time because it's funny and giving him little thought bubbles, and that kind of just makes me laugh a little bit too to lighten the situation.
Christina?
So for myself, I to help alleviate some of my anxiety about my students, I am becoming familiar again, as we should all do, the ethical codes that are out there, and trying to find out what I can do to professionally develop myself. I'm trying to contribute to some of the online platforms for my colleagues that I've created. And then other than that, try to organize and declutter my home, and to focus on my children. They're very small. I have a 6 and 7-year-old right now, and just making sure that they're having fun through this process. This is something new for them, new for mommy. And I think just take a step back and learn to appreciate the small things that I think through the rush and hubbub of life that sometimes we take for granted.
Mike, what are you up to besides growing an amazing beard?
I know, can't wait. Please grow it long.
I don't know. I think it's nearing its end. To mirror what everybody else said, I mean, trying to stay active. I have a 6 and a soon-to-be 9-year-old at home, so that's not really hard because chasing them around pretty much does that for you. But to what Barb said, I think staying in somewhat of a routine, making sure that things happen on a regular basis, I think is beneficial for them, but also for myself. I'll be honest, a big thing for me is to not follow the news religiously. I mean, I found myself doing that the first 2 days, and it was an emotional roller coaster. And then you're worried about something at 9 a.m. that is non-existent at 10 a.m. because things are evolving so quickly. So I do a comprehensive job of checking in 2 or 3 times a day, but it's not on constantly in the background. I have encouraged our families at school as well to not have the news on round the clock in the home. I think for our students as well as for myself, it creates a lot of unnecessary anxiety. You certainly want to keep informed, but I also think, oversaturation is a real risk here, and it can put you on, an emotional roller coaster that we need to be stable for both ourselves, our profession, our family, but also for our students. So that'd be the one different thing. I echo what many other people have said in terms of trying to exercise and stay active. The weather's been nice. We've been getting outside, going on walks on the trail and so forth. So that's been beneficial. But I would encourage everybody to not saturate yourself with the news cycle. Stay informed, but don't overwhelm yourself.
Jen, what have you been up to?
Daily projects. So the house has never been so clean, probably in a decade. So we do daily projects. I have a 15 and a 12-year-old. So keeping the 15-year-old boy off Xbox because it's the only thing he can do has been a challenge. So we start every day with a list of things that everybody has to do each day. Trying to stay connected and maintain my relationships. I'm pretty social, so being stuck at home has been a real challenge for me. I'm pretty lonely, to be honest, so these calls are great. We played a lot of board games. I'm a Yahtzee extraordinaire right now, so if you want to play some Yahtzee, I can make that happen. You want to Zoom me game? All in. And we got a few others. So we pulled out some oldies but goodies. That's what we're doing. Clean house, hanging out, spending some quality time, cooking and baking a lot as well. And then getting some cool projects done for work at this point, it seems, as we're in this never before experienced event.
Lisa, 2 things. What are you up to? But happy belated birthday.
Oh, well, thank you for the birthday wishes. That's sort of been a good and bad thing. It was sort of nice having a distraction this week since it was my birthday, but a little different birthday than what I'd planned. But definitely what everybody says, like I'm a walker to begin with. So instead of taking 1 walk a day, now I take 2 walks a day. So, just getting out, I think the fresh air is nice. Even if I just open my window, it's just nice to like have sunshine and have something positive. I agree. It was nice. I live alone, so it's nice to talk to people. I was looking forward to this call. I joked when we got on, like, I did my hair today. So like just trying to keep up you know, with that kind of stuff, it's real easy to just, you know, stay in your lounge clothes all day. But, you know, trying to make that routine and get up and doing the positive things for you, I think is really important. You know, and outreach to family, playing, you know, we're board game card player group too. So playing cards, board games, things like that. Reading. I started reading a book that I hadn't, you know, had started reading like months ago. So doing definitely some self-care stuff.
Judy, what are you up to?
Well, you know, there are some things that I do that keep me working, but, you know, like Mike said, I was obsessed by watching it. And there comes a point where you get overwhelmed and you say, like, you know, I'll set some certain times to do that. But I've actually been catching up on some television shows that I like on demand, because I don't always have time to watch them. And I discovered New Amsterdam and binge watched all the way from the first season to the most recent show. So that took a little bit of time, but it was a little bit different for me in terms of what I like to watch, but I did enjoy the show, and I do enjoy the show. And so that's kind of one of my special things. And, you know, calling everybody that I know, because like Lisa, I live alone, and it's nice to talk to people.
Yeah. I've been working out almost every day. I've been roughhousing with my children, but trying not to break the house too much. And then other than that, we're just trying to really keep to an education routine here at the house. And most of all, I think most of my work hours I'm still keeping pretty close. It's really connecting with great people like you guys on this call. And some people who are not on this call, you're also great people. So all that to say, thank you everyone for participating. Thank you everyone for listening. On behalf of PSCA and for school counselors across Pennsylvania, please stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.